welcome back to my channel. I recently received a comment from Jen on my Joy of Christmas book tag video from Vlogmas 2018. She requested a comparison of the Barnes & Noble Collectible Edition Christmas books, specifically A Christmas Treasury, The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales, and A Christmas Carol, which just came out this month. I already own A Christmas Treasury and The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales. For A Christmas Carol, I went to my local Barnes & Noble and filmed a couple phone videos. Hopefully that's enough to give you an idea of what the book is like on the inside. I will start with A Christmas Carol, published in 2021. The end pages are A Christmas Carol themed. They are the same front and back. The first illustration we see is Santa's sleigh landing outside a home. Here we have Santa smoking a pipe and admiring a Christmas tree. Stories: A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, The Doll That Santa Claus Brought by Catherine Carrington, A Christmas Dream and How It Came to Be True by Louisa May Alcott, Old Christmas by Washington Irving, Christmas at Red Butte by L.M. Montgomery, Kris Kringle and His Elves by B. McLaughlin, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffman. Poems: A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore, On the Way by Wilbur Nesbit, Santa's Surprise Party by Gladys Hyatt Sinclair, The Christmas Tree by Harriet Prescott Spofford, That Little Christmas Tree by Helen Standish Perkins, Signs of the Times by Gladys Hyatt Sinclair, Santa Claus and His Works by George P. Webster, Kris Kringle's Travels by Susie M. Best, Measured for Christmas by Egbert L. Bangs. There are 7 stories and 9 poems. Here we have Santa climbing into a chimney. This is where the stories begin. The illustration is Santa holding a pipe and touching his nose. Let's flip through A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Time to flip through The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffman. This is where the poems begin, and we see a different variation of the same illustration from the beginning of the book, Santa's sleigh landing outside a home. Moving on to A Christmas Treasury, which was published in 2017. The end pages are Santa's sleigh. They are the same in the front and in the back. The first illustration is a Christmas tree, the same one on the front cover. Here we have Santa reaching into his sack of toys. Here are the contents, 10 stories and 9 poems. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, A Country Christmas by Louisa May Alcott, The Peterkins' Christmas Tree by Lucretia P. Hale, Christmas or The Good Fairy by Harriet Beecher Stowe, A Christmas Inspiration by L. M. Montgomery, The Christmas Masquerade by Mary E. Wilkins Freeman, The Romance of a Christmas Card by Kate Douglas Wiggin, The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry, Christmas Every Day by William Dean Howells, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum, A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore, Christmas Greetings by Lewis Carroll, Birth and Adventures of Santa Claus by William Cotter Wilson, Mrs. Kris Kringle by Edith M. Thomas, A Dear Little Schemer by Mary Mapes Dodge, The Little Christmas Tree by Susan Coolidge, When His Whip Goes Crack by John H. Cook, Christmas Snow by Harriet Prescott Spoford, A New Fashioned Christmas by Julie M. Lipman. Here we see some children hanging their stockings. This is where the stories begin. There is no illustration, just a decorative page. Let's flip through A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Immediately you're going to notice these illustrations are all exactly the same as what you just saw in A Christmas Carol 2021. This is where the poems begin. Once again, no illustration, just a decorative page. Let's flip through A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore. This is the only poem that both books have. Unfortunately, I didn't think to check on that, so I did not flip through the 2021 version. I don't know how many pages it takes up or what illustrations are in there. At least you know that it is in there. In this book, the poem takes up 2 pages. The first illustration shows children sleeping and dreaming of angels. The second one is Santa Claus and some toys. A Christmas Treasury and A Christmas Carol have four authors in common. Three story authors, Charles Dickens, Louisa May Alcott, and L.M. Montgomery, and one poem author, Clement Clarke Moore. They have one story in common, A Christmas Carol, and one poem in common, A Visit from St. Nicholas. A Christmas Treasury has three more stories, 10 as opposed to 7, and the exact same amount of poems, 9. The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales, published in 2019. The end pages are a winter scene outside a church. The front and back are different variations of the same scene. Here we see Clara and the Nutcracker, Santa Claus, and two children. The contents, 11 stories and 10 poems. The Nutcracker by Alexandre Dumas. How It All Happened by Louisa May Alcott. A Christmas Mistake by L.M. Montgomery. A Christmas Tree for Santa Claus by Georgine Faulkner. A Kidnapped Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum. The Bird's Christmas Carol by Kate Douglas Wiggin. The Spirit of Christmas by Edith Houghton Hooker. Christmas Shopping by Priscilla Underwood. Christmas Storms and Sunshine by Elizabeth Gaskell. Watching for Santa Claus by Priscilla Underwood. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore. If You're Good by James Courtney Chalice. December by Carolyn Wells. A Christmas Eve Thought by Harriet Brewer Sterling. The Story of Holly Sprig by Arthur Upson. The Bloom of the Christmas Tree by Mary Mapes Dodge. A Change of Route by Hannah Daw Lloyd. Visiting Santa Claus by Lucy Larcom. An Interrupted Auction by Carolyn Wells. The Robin's Christmas Eve by Charlotte Bowen. Here we see Santa filling some stockings. This is where the stories begin, and there is an illustration of Bob Cratchit and his son Tiny Tim. Time to flip through the Nutcracker. The version in this book is by Dumas. It is inspired by Hoffman's story, which is the original, but it is different. This is actually the version that inspired the ballet. The black and white sketches on each page vary from book to book, but all of the full page color illustrations are exactly the same. The 11th and final story is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is the one story that is in all three books. I'm going to flip through once again because all of these illustrations are different. This is where the poems begin, and we see Santa's sleigh landing outside a home. This is an illustration that we have seen before. A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore. This is the same poem as the other two books. They all have this poem. As you can see in this book, the poem takes up more pages and there's illustrations on each page. The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales and A Christmas Carol have 4 authors in common: 3 story authors, Louisa May Alcott, L.M. Montgomery, and Charles Dickens, and 1 poem author, Clement Clarke Moore. They have 1 story in common, A Christmas Carol, and 1 poem in common, A Visit from St. Nicholas. Both books feature the Nutcracker but by different authors. E.T.A. Hoffman's story is the original. Dumas was inspired by Hoffman, but his version is different and the one that inspired the ballet. So just know they are similar, but they are not going to be the same. The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales has 4 more stories than A Christmas Carol, 11 verses 7, and 1 more poem, 10 verses 9. The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales and A Christmas Treasury have 7 authors in common. 5 story authors, Louisa May Alcott, L.M. Montgomery, L. Frank Baum, Kate Douglas Wiggin, and Charles Dickens, and 2 poem authors, Clement Clarke Moore and Mary Mapes Dodge. They have 1 story in common, A Christmas Carol, and 1 poem in common, A Visit from St. Nicholas. The Nutcracker and Other Christmas Tales has 1 more story, 11 verses 10, and 1 more poem, 10 verses 9. All 3 books have 4 authors in common. 3 story authors, Louisa May Alcott, L.M. Montgomery, and Charles Dickens, and 1 poem author, Clement Clarke Moore. They have 1 story in common, A Christmas Carol, and 1 poem in common, A Visit from St. Nicholas. I hope this comparison was helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions. Personally, I'm really happy with A Christmas Treasury and the Nutcracker because they match. Even though A Christmas Carol is beautiful and completely different from the other 2, I don't think I'll be purchasing it, at least at this time. I'm happy with my matching red and green books from previous years. If you decide to buy 1, 2, or all 3 of these books, now you know that it is not a waste of money. They have authors in common and not so much stories and poems. You would have a lot of holiday content to read with very few repeats. Let me know in the comments down below which book is your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that red button down below to subscribe and become a member of my YouTube family. Also, click the bell to turn on your notifications. I will see you in my next video. Bye!